What happens when your entire life's work, helping others heal, comes full circle and forces you to face your own unhealed wound live on television? Dr. Phil McGraw stood center stage, mid-sentence, when a door at the back of the studio opened. His words stopped. His hand froze mid-gesture. For the first time in 21 seasons, the man who never loses control completely lost it. The woman walking down that aisle wasn't just another guest. She was his sister. And they hadn't spoken in 40 years. What happened in the next 12 minutes would become the most watched moment in daytime television history. The day had started like any other taping. Studio cameras warming up, audience settling in, production assistants running final checks. Dr. Phil's guest that morning was supposed to be Sarah Mitchell, a mother trying to reconnect with her estranged daughter after a decade of silence. Standard territory for Dr. Phil: family reconciliation, healing broken bonds, second chances. Sarah sat in the guest chair, tissue box on the armrest, her story spilling out in broken sentences. I just want her to know I'm sorry. That I was wrong. That I... She paused, looking past Dr. Phil toward the studio entrance. That I never stopped loving her. Dr. Phil leaned forward with that signature intensity, the look that had helped thousands find clarity. Sarah, what would you say to your daughter if she walked through that door right now? It was a hypothetical. A therapeutic exercise. Dr. Phil had asked this question 1,000 times. But this time, someone actually walked through the door. The studio door opened. Not the one guests used. The back entrance, the one reserved for staff and emergencies. A woman in her late 60s, gray hair pulled back, wearing a simple cardigan that had seen better days, stepped into the light. She carried a worn photo album pressed against her chest like armor. Dr. Phil turned toward the movement, still in professional mode. Hold on, we're in the middle of... Then he saw her face. The clipboard he was holding clattered to the floor. His mouth opened but no sound came out. 21 years of broadcast experience vanished in a heartbeat. The man who built a career on never being rattled stood completely frozen. Hello, Philip, the woman said quietly. Her voice cracked on his name. The studio went completely silent. Not TV silent. Actually silent. Cameras kept rolling but the operators had stopped breathing. The audience sat motionless. Even the overhead lights seemed to dim, though that might have been imagination. Sarah, the scheduled guest, pressed herself back into her chair, forgotten. Deanna? Dr. Phil's voice came out barely above a whisper. His sister nodded. 40 years of separation sat between them like a canyon. Stop the tape. Dr. Phil didn't yell it. Didn't command it. He said it like a man drowning says. Help. Stop the... Just stop everything. The director's voice crackled through someone's headset. Keep rolling. Do not cut. What happened next, no producer could have scripted. Dr. Phil walked toward his sister, then stopped. Started again, then stopped. The man who'd guided thousands through their most painful moments couldn't figure out how to close a 15-foot gap. Deanna took the first real step. I saw you were doing a show about... She gestured vaguely towards Sarah. About sisters. About fixing what's broken. And I thought. Her voice collapsed. Dr. Phil's hand went to his face. The cameras caught every second as his eyes filled. Not camera tears. Real ones. The kind that come from a wound so old you forgot it was still bleeding. I tried to call. Deanna continued. I tried to, but I didn't know if... 40 years. Dr. Phil interrupted. Not angry. Just stating a fact that made no sense. 40 years, D. She flinched at the nickname. I know. The audience was crying. Sarah was crying. The cameras kept rolling because this had stopped being television and become something else entirely. Dr. Phil turned to his producers off camera. Get Robin. His wife's name came out like a prayer. Get her now. Someone ran. You could hear footsteps echoing backstage. He looked back at his sister. Why now? After all this, why today? Deanna clutched the photo album tighter. Because I'm dying, Philip. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 6 months ago, they said 6 months. I'm already on borrowed time. Time stopped. The entire universe held its breath. Dr. Phil's knees actually buckled. Slightly. Barely. But the man who'd stood strong for millions physically wavered. A production assistant moved toward him, but he waved them off. 6 months, he repeated, like testing the weight of the words. I didn't want to guilt you, Deanna said quickly. I didn't come here to. I just needed you to know that every day for 40 years, I wanted to call. I picked up the phone. I typed emails. I drove past your old neighborhood. I watched every episode of your show wishing I could be brave enough to. Stop. Dr. Phil held up his hand. But his voice wasn't harsh. It was breaking. Just hold on. He walked to the guest chair, sat down in it like his legs wouldn't hold him anymore. Put his face in his hands. The audience watched Dr. Phil do what he'd coached thousands to do but had never done himself on camera. Completely fall apart. Subscribe and leave a comment, because the most powerful part of this story is still ahead. When Robin burst through the studio door seconds later, she saw her husband of 47 years in pieces and his sister standing alone in the aisle. She didn't ask questions. She ran to Deanna first, not Phil. Wrap this stranger, this ghost from their past. In an embrace that said family, louder than words ever could. I didn't know, Robin said into Deanna's shoulder. I didn't know. He doesn't talk about it. Deanna whispered back. The fight. What Dad said. What I said. We were so young and so stupid and so hurt. Dr. Phil looked up from his hands. I thought you hated me. For 40 years I thought. I never hated you. Deanna's voice carried across the studio. I hated myself for not being brave enough to fix it. Every success you had, every life you changed, I was proud and heartbroken at the same time because I wasn't part of it. The photo album in her hand suddenly took on weight. Physical, emotional, spiritual weight. What's in there? Dr. Phil asked, nodding toward it. Deanna opened it with shaking hands. Pulled out a photograph so old the edges had yellowed. 2 kids, maybe 7 and 9, wearing matching cowboy hats, arms around each other, gap-toothed grins bright enough to light the world. I've carried this every day, she said. Every single day for 40 years. She walked down the aisle, closing the distance between them. Held out the photo. Dr. Phil took it like it was made of glass and memory. That's who we were, Deanna said softly. Before everything went wrong. Before Dad died and we blamed each other. Before I said those things and you said those things and we both decided pride was more important than family. Dr. Phil stared at the photo. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of 4 decades. I've built a career telling people not to do what we did. Not to let time pass. Not to let silence win. And I didn't. We were both wrong, Deanna interrupted. Both stubborn. Both broken. But Philip, I don't have time to be wrong anymore. Off camera, Dr. Phil made a choice no producer expected. He stood up. Walked to the edge of the stage and looked directly into camera 1. Not at his sister. Not at the audience. At America. I need to stop for a second, he said, and every television in every home in the country felt it. 21 years I've been doing this show. 21 years telling people to heal their relationships, fix their families, not waste time. And the entire time, I've had a sister I haven't spoken to in 40 years. He laughed. Not a happy laugh. A broken one. I've been a hypocrite. I've been telling you to do what I couldn't do myself. Robin appeared beside him. Took his hand. He squeezed it like a lifeline. But here's what I learned in the last 5 minutes, he continued, voice steadying. It's never too late until it's too late. My sister is dying. She has months. If she hadn't been brave enough to walk through that door today, I would have lost her forever without ever saying. His voice cracked again. He looked back at Deanna. I'm sorry, he said. Simple. Direct. The two hardest words in any language. For everything. For my part in the fight. For letting pride win. For 40 years of missed birthdays and phone calls and... He gestured helplessly. For missing your life. But what happened next is something no one in the room, or watching at home, saw coming. Deanna walked down the rest of the aisle. Climbed the 3 steps to the stage. Stood 6 inches from her brother. And from her cardigan pocket she pulled out an envelope. Before you say anything else, she said, I need you to read this. Dr. Phil took it. His name, Phil, was written on the front in handwriting he hadn't seen in 4 decades but recognized instantly. Their father's. What? Dad wrote it 3 days before he died, Deanna said. He gave it to me and made me promise to give it to you when the time was right. But I was so angry at you for not being there when he passed, I kept it. For 40 years, Philip. I kept this from you out of spite. Dr. Phil's hands shook as he opened the envelope. Pulled out a single sheet of paper. Began to read silently. His face cycled through shock, grief, understanding, and finally peace. What does it say? Robin asked softly. Dr. Phil looked at his sister. It says that the fight that tore us apart wasn't about what we thought it was about. It says Dad knew we both blamed ourselves for not being there enough for him. And he wanted us to know. His voice broke completely. He wanted us to know he was proud of both of us. That the only thing he regretted was that we stopped being family over something he never blamed us for in the first place. The studio erupted. Not applause. Sobs. Audience members held each other. Camera operators wiped their eyes. The director, a 30-year veteran who'd seen everything, later admitted he cried so hard he had to step away from the monitors. Dr. Phil pulled his sister into an embrace that erased 40 years in seconds. They stood there, 2 people who'd wasted decades on pride and pain, holding each other like the scared kids in that photograph. I'm not leaving your side, Dr. Phil said into her shoulder. However long you have, 6 months, 6 days, 6 years, I'm not missing another second. Promise? Deanna asked, sounding exactly like the little sister she'd been before everything broke. Promise. Share and subscribe. Make sure this story is never forgotten. After the show, Dr. Phil canceled his taping schedule for 2 weeks. He and Robin moved Deanna into their guest house. Called the best oncologists in the country. Organized family dinners and movie nights and all the ordinary moments they'd missed. Sarah Mitchell, the scheduled guest whose story had been overshadowed, later said in an interview, I came on the show hoping to heal with my daughter. What I got was a front row seat to the most important lesson about forgiveness I'll ever witness. Dr. Phil didn't just talk about healing that day. He lived it. The episode, unedited, raw, real, became the highest-rated show in Dr. Phil's history. But more than that, it became a catalyst. Thousands of viewers reached out to estranged family members. Forgiveness letters flooded mailboxes. Families reunited after decades of silence. Deanna McGraw passed away 7 months later, surrounded by family. She lived longer than doctors predicted. Dr. Phil was there when she took her last breath, holding the same hand he'd held when they were kids in cowboy hats. At her funeral, he spoke without notes. My sister taught me that pride isn't strength, it's cowardice. That time doesn't heal wounds, courage does. That it's never too late until it actually is. He pulled out that old photograph, the one she'd carried for 40 years. This is who we were. This is who we came back to. And I'll carry this for the rest of my life to remember that every piece of advice I give you, I have to be willing to live myself. The letter from their father now sits framed in Dr. Phil's office. Not hidden. Not private. Visible to every guest who walks through, a reminder that the people who help others heal are just as human, just as broken, just as in need of grace as everyone else. Years later, When asked about that moment when his sister walked through the door, Dr. Phil said, "I spent 2 decades teaching people not to waste time. Deanna gave me the gift of practicing what I preach. She gave me 7 months I thought I'd lost forever. And in those 7 months, we healed 40 years." The photo album Deanna brought that day sits in the McGraw home library. Robin added photos from those last 7 months. Pictures of Deanna and Phil laughing in the kitchen. Robin and Deanna baking cookies. The 3 of them watching old home movies. Evidence that even the most shattered relationships can be rebuilt if someone is brave enough to walk through the door. The episode became required viewing in psychology programs nationwide. Not for technique. For truth. For the reminder that healers need healing too. That wisdom isn't the absence of mistakes, it's what you do after you make them. And somewhere in heaven, a father watches his children laugh together again, knowing his last letter did exactly what he hoped. Brought his family home. The ripple effects continued for years. Mental health professionals cited the episode as a turning point in how America views vulnerability in leadership. Dr. Phil showed that admitting your failures doesn't diminish your authority, it strengthens it, wrote Dr. Jennifer Santos in Psychology Today. The Dr. Phil Foundation established the Deanna McGraw Reconciliation Fund, providing family therapy resources to those separated by conflict. Thousands of families received help reconnecting, all inspired by one sister's courage to walk through a door after 40 years of silence.